Before Rome, before Greece, before the greatest empires there was a city that ruled the world, a city of gold, power, and law, a city so advanced that its influence still shapes modern civilization today. This is the story of Babylon and the king who created the first laws in human history. More than 4,000 years ago, in the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, one of the greatest civilizations in history was born. This region, known as Mesopotamia, was the cradle of early human progress. Here, cities rose, trade expanded, and writing transformed communication. But among all these cities, one would become legendary: Babylon. At first, Babylon was not powerful. It was a small city, surrounded by stronger kingdoms and rival states. Many believed it would never dominate the region. But history often changes because of one person. That person was Hammurabi. Hammurabi became king of Babylon around 1792 BCE. At the beginning of his rule, Babylon was not the strongest power in Mesopotamia. It faced threats from neighboring kingdoms, internal instability, and constant competition. However, Hammurabi was not just a warrior. He was a strategist, a politician, and a visionary. Instead of attacking immediately, he built alliances. He strengthened the economy. He improved the army. He waited for the right moment. This patience would change history. Over time, Hammurabi expanded Babylon's influence. One by one, rival cities fell. Some were conquered. Others joined through diplomacy. Eventually, Babylon became the dominant power in Mesopotamia. For the first time, large parts of the region were united under one ruler. But Hammurabi's greatest achievement was not conquest. It was law. Before Babylon, justice was often chaotic. Each city had its own rules. Punishment depended on status, power, or influence. This created instability and conflict. Hammurabi wanted something different. He created one of the first written legal systems in human history, the Code of Hammurabi. These laws were carved into stone and displayed publicly. Everyone could see them. This transparency was revolutionary. The code included rules about trade, property, family, and crime. It also introduced the famous principle, an eye for an eye. This idea emphasized fairness and balance. While harsh, it created predictability. People understood consequences. This legal system influenced future civilizations. Even today, many legal principles trace their origins to Babylon. Hammurabi also strengthened administration. Governors managed regions, officials collected taxes, infrastructure improved, trade expanded across the empire. Babylon became a center of culture, knowledge, and wealth. Merchants traveled long distances, ideas spread. This created innovation. Babylon also advanced science and mathematics. They developed systems of measurement, astronomy, and time. The 60-minute hour and 360-degree circle come from Mesopotamian traditions. These innovations still shape modern life. But power also brought challenges. Rebellions occurred. Enemies gathered. Maintaining stability required constant effort. After Hammurabi's death, the empire weakened. External invasions and internal conflict led to decline. However, Babylon did not disappear. It returned again in later centuries, reaching new heights during the Neo-Babylonian Empire. The city became famous for its architecture and wealth. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon became one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. Whether real or legendary, they symbolized power and beauty. Babylon also became a symbol in religion, culture, and literature. For some, it represented luxury and corruption. For others, knowledge and progress. This duality made Babylon unforgettable. The influence of Babylon extended far beyond its time. Its legal systems, administration, and culture shaped future empires. Persia, Greece, and Rome all learned from Mesopotamia. The idea of centralized government, written law, and organized society became universal. Babylon showed that power is not only about military strength, it is about order, stability, and systems. This lesson remains relevant today. Modern states depend on law, governance, and institutions. The foundation of these systems can be traced back to Babylon. The story of Babylon also reminds us that civilization is fragile. Empires rise and fall, but ideas endure. Hammurabi's laws still influence the world thousands of years later. This is the power of innovation. This is the power of vision. Imagine living in Babylon at its peak. The streets filled with merchants and travelers. The temples rising above the city. The markets full of goods from distant lands. The laws shaping everyday life. For the first time, people experienced structured justice. This created confidence and stability. It encouraged trade and growth. But it also created control and hierarchy. This balance between order and freedom remains central in history. The legacy of Babylon is not only ancient, it is modern. Every court, every contract, every system of justice carries echoes of Hammurabi. This connection between past and present makes history powerful. The Babylonian experience also transformed identity. People began to see themselves as part of larger systems rather than only local communities. This shift influenced global civilization. It allowed complex societies to grow. It encouraged cooperation, trade, and cultural exchange. Babylon demonstrated that governance could bring stability, but it also showed the risks of centralization. When leadership weakened, systems collapsed. This cycle continues today. The lessons of Babylon remain relevant. Strong institutions, fairness, and adaptability determine survival. The rise and fall of Babylon reminds us that power alone is not enough. Sustainability, justice, and balance are essential. And as we continue our journey through history, we will see how these principles shaped every empire that followed, from Persia to Rome, from medieval kingdoms to modern nations. The legacy of Babylon continues, because the story of law, the story of order, the story of civilization began here, and the question remains, would you live under these laws or fight against them? The Babylonian legal tradition created stability that allowed innovation. Farmers knew their rights, merchants trusted agreements, contracts became reliable. This led to economic growth. This stability attracted people from different regions. Babylon became multicultural. Different languages, beliefs, and customs interacted. This cultural exchange accelerated progress. The empire also invested in infrastructure. Irrigation improved agriculture. Roads connected cities. Trade networks expanded. This increased wealth and influence. The king was seen not only as a conqueror, but as a guardian of order. This model inspired future rulers. However, power always creates tension. Different groups had different interests. Maintaining fairness was difficult. Social classes emerged. Inequality grew. These challenges tested the system. Yet the idea of law remained strong. Even after the empire weakened, its legal concepts survived. Future civilizations adapted and improved them. This shows the power of ideas. Empires collapse. Knowledge survives. Babylon's legacy proves that intellectual achievements can outlive military victories. The memory of Babylon influenced religion and mythology. Stories about its wealth, power, and downfall became symbols. Some saw it as a warning against arrogance, others as a model of civilization. This dual image made Babylon legendary. In modern culture, Babylon still appears in movies, books, and discussions. Its name represents both greatness and danger. This shows how powerful historical symbols can become. The rise of Babylon also teaches leadership. Hammurabi balanced strength and diplomacy. He understood timing. He used both force and negotiation. These skills remain essential today. Leaders in business and politics study similar principles. Strategy, patience, and vision determine success. The Babylonian Empire also reminds us that systems must evolve. Rigid structures eventually fail. Adaptability is necessary. This lesson applies to modern governments and organizations. The future belongs to those who innovate. Babylon was one of the first examples of this reality. As we continue exploring history, we see the same patterns repeated: rise, expansion, stability, decline. But each empire leaves something behind. Babylon left law, and law became the foundation of civilization. Without it, modern society would be impossible. So when we think about the greatest empires, we must remember that the most powerful weapon is not the sword, it is order, it is structure, it is vision. This is the true legacy of Babylon. And as we continue this journey through the greatest empires in history, we will discover how each one shaped the world we live in today. Because the story of humanity is the story of ideas. And some of the most important ideas were born in Babylon. The importance of Babylon also lies in its role as a bridge between ancient and later civilizations. Knowledge preserved in Mesopotamia traveled to Persia, Greece, and eventually Rome. Mathematics, astronomy, and administrative systems evolved. The idea of record-keeping improved governance. This allowed larger and more complex societies. The Babylonian influence can be seen in calendars, measurements, and legal traditions. These contributions shaped global development. Another important lesson is resilience. Babylon rose multiple times after decline. This ability to recover demonstrates adaptability. Modern societies also face crises. Recovery depends on innovation and cooperation. The Babylonian story also highlights human ambition. Cities compete, leaders rise, and systems evolve. But the desire for order remains constant. Every civilization seeks stability. Every generation builds upon the past. This continuity connects us to ancient history. The achievements of Babylon are not distant. They are part of our daily lives. From contracts to courts, from timekeeping to planning, Babylon's legacy continues. This realization transforms how we see history. It is not just stories, it is our foundation. And as we continue exploring the greatest empires, remember this: power fades, ideas endure. Babylon may have fallen, but its vision still shapes the world. And that is why its story remains one of the most important in human history. As we reflect on Babylon, we see more than an empire. We see the birth of systems that made large societies possible. Without law, trade cannot flourish. Without trust, cooperation fails. Without structure, civilizations collapse. Hammurabi understood this truth thousands of years ago. He transformed power into order. He turned conquest into governance. He changed history. This transformation allowed humanity to move from chaos toward organized civilization. It created stability, opportunity, and progress. And this is why Babylon matters. Not because of its armies or wealth, but because of its ideas. The same challenge exists today. How do we create fair systems? How do we balance power and justice? How do we build stable societies? These questions began in Babylon. They continue in every nation. The answers shape our future. And as we continue this journey through history, remember that every empire, every war, and every leader is part of a larger story. A story about human progress, a story about order and chaos, a story about vision. The Babylonian Empire was one of the first great chapters, and its influence will never disappear, because the world we live in today still carries the echoes of Babylon. So the final question remains: if you had the power to create the laws of a new civilization, what would you choose?